This is the second part of my big test. In this part we will look directly at the image quality in SDR and Full HD mode. Who watched my first video, which is more than an hour long? There I just did a test in SDR. But there I used my old technique of analysis and comparison. Today, we will check the quality of SDR output with my new technique, which I have already successfully applied for HDR analysis. Test 006, a fragment from the movie Casino Royale. This is a frame from a real video, not a theoretical one, about the same results you will see when watching most movies. Here we will be able to see what the differences in picture quality really are when playing a Blu-ray remix. There is an outsider and a leader in this test. Let's take apart the outsider first. It's, as I think many have guessed, Apple TV. Although until recently, it was Shield TV. But now, Shield TV has corrected itself. Here is a video about the problem itself, what and how you can watch, if interested. They're also told what you need to do to solve the problem. The patch does not work by default. And here I will just show what was and what has become in Shield TV. This is how it was. And this is how it became. The difference is sufficient. If there was more red in the frame, it would be even more visible. But I note that all these years, 98% of viewers did not see this defect. They were quite satisfied with the image. Many even considered this image as a reference. Against the background of this rather serious defect, the problem with Apple TV can be said to be trifling. I think to this day 99.9% of owners believe that Apple TV is a quality source of video with accurate color reproduction. But it is not. See. This is the original. And this is the picture from the Apple TV. You can see that everything has gone greenish. If the Shield TV had a crimson red tint to it, it's greenish here. And not many people see that. I'll show you this later on in the graphs. All because of our adaptive vision. And then there's the fact that a lot of people watch TV in medium color temperature mode, and a lot of people watch it in cool color temperature mode. And nothing, they are happy, and they apparently do not care that the picture they see is far from what the director wanted to show them. Although, I've said many times that when you turn on the mode Warm 2, which is close to the standard D65, everything seems unnatural, too warm. But this is an imaginary perception. You see it that way compared to a medium or cold color temperature mode. But just watch the TV a couple of days in Warm 2 mode, and after that if you turn on the medium or cold color mode, you will be surprised how blue and unpleasant everything becomes. So I advise anyone who has not yet switched to the right color perception, at least try to switch to a couple of days of color temperature mode Warm 2. Believe me, if you hold out for a couple of days, you will agree with my words. Moving on. Actually, if we compare the images of the other participants, we will not see any more differences, which are obviously striking, simply because all show almost identical images. But, before we move on to the analysis of color rendering on the graphs to see the difference, let me show you the leader. It is the Xiaomi Stick 4K, yes, it is the one that stands out from the rest. But to see the difference in this rather soapy picture, you need to enlarge the picture. Here is quite a soapy image, and immediately do not see the difference. The fact is that in fact Xiaomi creates a more elaborate image. The most interesting thing is that the increased visual clarity here is created as it seems to me not by sharpening. And this is surprising because it does not create defects in the image. I tried to replicate this effect in DaVinci Resolve with color and sharpness sliders. In the end, I couldn't replicate it. I decided to figure out how to do it. Let's try to figure it out together. So let's zoom into 300% and let's compare with OPPO for example. Let's look at the skin texture on Bond's neck. You see, if you look closely, the Xiaomi Stick is more convex, visible, but also very soft and delicate. Now let's look at this band and Bond's ear. Let's see. See, the band is clearer in Xiaomi, There is no looseness, it looks more accurate, as well as the ear. Instead of rough squares, we see a clearer elaboration. If you look closely, it becomes clear what the difference is. The fact that the Xiaomi pixels are smaller. There is a better color interpolation. But this is not all. Let's remove the color and look only at the brightness channel. Look. There is a difference too. It turns out that the luminance channel has a sharper image here too. I'm not sure, but I think it uses a principle that was used in video game cards called supersampling. The principle is this: the original image is first upscaled to 4K and then downscaled again to 1080p, with the upscaling process increasing the bit rate. This gives more accurate and faithful elaboration and interpolation of colors. I will tell and show the difference in more detail in another screenshot. Let's compare the sharpness and clarity of detail produced by the media players and for which the brightness channel is responsible. I can show you that there is almost no difference. The only thing with the Ugoos X2 is an interesting story. See, this is the X2 Cube in Android mode, and this is the X2 Cube in Corelec mode. In Android mode, the X2 Cube produces a slightly different image. You can call it wrong. You can see how blocks of the image, some kind of blurs, they become fuzzy. But you can see this is not in any image, but only where the original video is not very clear, relatively low bitrate, or poorly matched bitrate, and where there are fine details like hair or textures. I already wrote to Ugoos tech support about this problem. From what I see, it is related to H264 decoder. But unfortunately, so far the answer from Ugoos is not very nice. The thing is that it's a problem in the SDK that Amlogic provided. And the probability that Amlogic will fix the bug tends to 0. At least that's what Ugoos support has answered. At the same time, on media players with the same chip but built on Android TV, this problem does not exist. I specifically checked the Ugoos AM6B Plus for this problem as well. I can say that its image is completely the same as X2 Cube with Ugoos firmware. The defect is there. Therefore, this problem will be visible on all players built with Ugoos firmware. I repeat, any media player that runs on Amlogic S905X2 or S922X with Ugoos firmware will have this defect until I can confirm the presence of this problem on S905X3 and X4. I hope there will not be a defect, but anything is possible. Glad to see that the defect is only on the SDR video, and you can see it with your eyes only if you look closely, but certainly it is unpleasant. But in Corelec installed on the X2 Cube, the image is correct, down to every pixel, is exactly the same as OPPO and others. All other players give a completely identical image, with my eyes at 500% magnification. There is no difference in any pixel. I repeat, they do not differ at all. Actually, it should be. The brightness channel is encoded without interpolation. Therefore, the difference can only be due to bugs. So the correct way to view SDR video on Ugoos X2 and Ugoos AM6 is Corelec. Once again, all media players have the same detail and clarity visible to the eye. And not only that, even on graphs, you will not see almost any difference, except in cases of bugs from the creators of the firmware. There is no such thing that this media player gives more detail, sharper image, or rather this was not until the Xiaomi Mi TV Stick 4K. The only one that differs in the screenshots from the others for the better. While I say, bravo to Xiaomi and Amlogic. Let's look briefly at the graphics for the 006 test. Apple TV shifted everything toward the green channel. Look at Vectorscope. Also look at Parade. You can see that the red and blue channels have gone down. The green channel has also gone down a bit. I have tried to bring the image back to a more or less normal state and it succeeded. The colors are back to normal. To get the right color balance back on the Apple TV, it is enough to increase the red and blue color channels roughly proportionally. In the player itself you cannot do this, so you have to twist the settings on the TV. You need to find the white balance settings and raise the red and blue channels by 2 to 3 units. But in general, with these settings, it is already quite possible to enjoy accurate color reproduction. Let me show you some more of those that are somehow different from the rest. This is a Fire TV stick when outputting in 422 12-bit mode. Look, pay attention to vector scope. You see what a strange graph in the grid. It means that the output is used as is 8 bits without anti-aliasing and increasing the bit depth. But you will not see the difference in the picture, it is only on the graphs. And the new Fire TV Max is even worse. But nevertheless, on this particular image, I visually could not find a difference with the others. Let's pay attention to something else. Look, if you turn on the output mode 444 10-bit, the graph becomes like the others. Why this is so, I have no answer yet. But what is funny is that you cannot select this mode of output. For example, with my LG OLED 77CX TV, the output is only 422 12-bit, even if I put the options 8-bit, 10-bit, to switch it to 444 mode, it continues to be in 422 12-bit mode. Next, On TV has slightly lowered the signal level more than the others and slightly reduced color saturation. But it too can only be determined by the graphs, you will not see it on the image. Next, Shield TV, it has the same confusion with modes as Amazon. In mode 444 8-bit it produces a closer image to others. Note the difference in the brightness channel. These peaks here mean that the transitions between colors are more contrasty, more pixels have the same brightness and color. And even if you remove the color channel, the difference between 444 and 422 modes remains. But only at the bottom of the brightness channel. It is almost certain that Shield TV is internally processing in 444. In more detail to understand why, and due to what there is a difference, I cannot yet. I'm doing further analysis now, but unfortunately the Magewell capture card I was really hoping for, as it is able to do 444 8 and 10-bit capture. I wanted to make a comparison in this mode so that there was no unnecessary conversion of color channels. So, it turned out that this professional and expensive capture card, costing almost $1,000, has a problem with capturing 10 and 12-bit video, it spoils it, and it is very sad. Magewell tech support is silent. So for now I'm doing an analysis with only 422 video capture. Now, let's see test 007. The first image is color checker. It is extremely simple, but you can see a lot from it. Here, I tried capturing as many options as possible for each player, with output in 444, 422, 8, 10, 12 bits. All for the sake of seeing the difference. I will not describe and talk about each option for a long time, I will just say that the colors themselves, all players output correctly, except Apple TV. The difference is the interpolation of colors of the transitions between them. I immediately switch to difference mode. Let's compare with how this file shows OPPO. Let's take it as a reference. The point is simple, if everything is black on the screen, then there is no difference. I suggest watching this part with the lights off to see the smallest difference in the black. And so. This is me comparing the OPPO image to myself. Since it is the same image, then we have a completely black screen. Now the Apple TV. You see how it mocks the colors. Note the thickness and brightness of the color lines. This is the difference in interpolation for different media players. We take a dropper and drive for simplicity in 8-bit mode. The maximum value is 255. The top bar, this is the gray shades, as you can see, Apple TV is lying here. The deviation is serious, on the red and blue channel. This is exactly the deviation from the difference between the OPPO and Apple TV images. Below we see deviations in color shades, all 6 colors, the situation there is just as bad. Next, Dune Real Vision 4K. As we can see, the tones themselves do not differ from the original, but the stripes are thick. It is just because of a different way of interpolation. Dune also uses a different direction of interpolation, not like everyone else. This is roughly the same way Amazon players are used. Both Amazon sticks also all output exactly the same colors, the only difference is on the edges of the color squares where there are transitions. And here's the Xiaomi. You see how much different its image, it's just because of the new shades created by Xiaomi in the processing. But the colors themselves are, as with other players, are identical to OPPO. In the 10-bit color representation, all players will be different by 1 to 2 values, but this is also due to interpolation, because the source I have made from a 32-bit color file. Within the hues there is a difference between the color points. If I used an 8-bit source, all colors would consist strictly of 1 pixel color inside each rectangle. Actually, the color interpolation methods are almost identical for Amazon and Dune. They are also identical for OPPO, Shield TV, On TV, Ugu's X2. You see, no horizontal color lines because their color interpolation principle is the same as the OPPO. Only a slightly different font of letters can be seen. In general, you have already realized that all players display colors correctly. All the difference in SDR mode is only due to interpolation of colors when restoring. If we had the source video in 444 format, which means all components are encoded without compression, and therefore there is no need to do interpolation to restore colors, then there would be no difference at all. Well, except for the crooked output for Apple TV and different from all the Xiaomi, because it would have applied processing and even in this case, created additional shades. Let's move on to the graphs. Here I will only demonstrate the problem of the Apple TV. Everything else is the difference between the different video output modes 422 and 444 and different bit rates. You can see the color divergence on the Apple TV. You see the staircase. It should be white. All colors add up to white if you add them up. But the Apple TV can't do that. This is how it should be. And this is how Xiaomi outputs it. You can see how many additional shades have appeared in the image. Let me show you an interesting experience at the end of this part. It is not related to the image quality of media players, but it is important for understanding our perception of the image on the TV screen, and it is important for color adjustments in the TV itself. Look, this is a red gradient. Now, look at the graphs. Nothing confuses you, we only have red here, but we see that there are channels blue and green. And look how strange the waveform graph is. First it goes one way, then the other. Just like Parade has a strange graph. At the same time, on the vector scope we only see a red line. I wonder really why there are no other color lines. Can you guess why? Look, I'm going to take a dropper and I'm going to guide you through the gradient. And you watch what happens to the graphs. I go down from black to red. See, only the value of red changes, it increases from 0 to the maximum value, the other color channels are absent, or rather it's 0. And now, I move on to the top. Look the opposite, the red color stays at its maximum value, but blue and green appear, and their values increase. At the bottom we have visually the same red color, and you can see with your eyes that it is the same red color. But, at the same time, the brightness of this red is less on the left and more on the right, or in another way, the fullness or saturation of red on the right is greater than on the left, but the chromaticity itself does not change. The value of red is maximal, but by adding 2 color channels, the chromaticity changes. That is, it goes from bright red saturated to lightened, and then loses color and becomes white, because the sum of all the color channels eventually gives us white. That's why, distinguish in an image these two concepts, saturation and chromaticity. When setting up a TV, this plays a very important role, by the way. It's actually quite difficult to understand because color perception depends on brightness. Here's an example, another interesting effect of our vision. Look at the picture. On the gray gradient, there are red squares, and the color is the same for each row. So on the top row, you see the same red. In the middle less saturated, but also the same pink, and on the bottom white with different brightness. Do you agree? Now, we add another pattern. Let's look at the color rows horizontally. Agree, to our eyes, these are already different colors. But the trick is that the values of the colors themselves have not changed. You can't believe it, but the squares have the same RGB values. Only the substrate has changed. It was in the form of a gray gradient, and now it is the same gray color. Due to the brightness, the eyes see the color inside the squares differently. You have to agree, it's interesting how our eyesight can trick us. This will probably be the end of part 2. It's quite long, but I wanted to go into as much detail as possible about all the nuances. For those who are not interested, just wait for the last video, where I will announce all the results. And who is interested, then wait for the third part. That's all, thanks for watching. Goodbye.